Welcome to episode number 38 of the Big Money Stylist podcast. Now, if you guys are new to our podcast and you're watching it live, Val is in sick timeout right now, okay? I just want to be clear. We're not mad at her. We told her she has to face the wall to not breathe on us. We have 4 events coming up next week. We can't afford to get sick, okay, as a team.
I'm not sick.
Okay.
Just want to clarify.
All right, well, your coughing and your general demeanor right now is really telling us otherwise.
And our podcast studio is kind of like being in an airplane. It's like really small and confined. So
I offered to call in, guys.
If you actually want to see,
this is dedication. I showed up still, okay?
If you actually want to see what we look like right now, go to bigmoneystylistnow.com and you can see me super leaning away. Val's literally facing a corner and Danielle has no idea what to do. She's just going back and forth.
I'm gonna build a barrier. I need one of those blue masks, you know.
My favorite thing is I watched a Coach Val cough into her hair. I'm like, what the fuck?
Like, it was the closest thing.
You know what though? They say if you're on an airplane, side note, that if you have to cough, that's how you should cough into your sleeve, because if you cough into your hands and then you're like, germy, then it's bad. So
it's fucking gross. Don't touch anything.
But your hair, I guess that's like a buffer. It's like
it's
sleeve.
everywhere. What am I supposed to do? Unless I'm coughing into it.
Well, now when Jill goes through to tighten your extension, she's gonna be touching all your fucking germs.
No, you can wash it.
I'll wash it.
It's wash.
All
right, bring us in on our topic.
All right, so today is all about production. So, Danielle.
Yes.
When you hear the phrase "getting into a rhythm," what does that mean to you?
Getting into a rhythm.
I don't know why you have to whisper it like that.
Getting into a rhythm, I feel like takes time and finesse, and I think for me, I think of rhythm as like momentum, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
Like people, like you find your groove and you start to pick up some momentum, and like shit, it's like light at the end of the tunnel. You know what I mean? I think sometimes in business and in growth and all that, it's like sometimes things feel like they're compiling on, and people really quit before the game really gets started. And all of a sudden you hit this sweet spot where you're like, oh, I can breathe a little bit, and you've got a little more rhythm, and things don't seem like you're not in such a challenging space, I guess.
Perfect. Val, what does it mean to you, getting into a rhythm?
Yeah, I agree with what Danielle said, but it's also, to me, means lingering next is like comfort zone, and then it's time to start shifting and growing some more.
So what happens when you have found a rhythm and you're like, this is a great place I'm in, but then you don't continue to move forward? What happens then?
Then you're stagnant. That's not good. You're not growing.
Danielle?
You know what? I was listening to last week's podcast because I actually, every Wednesday I wake up and I go for a little walk and I listen to our previous podcast to kind of like inspire me for today's podcast. And it was interesting because one thing that I love that we talked about last week, and we've all experienced this, is like we'll be stagnant and we'll think I'm not in this place of pain, so I must not be growing. And last week we talked about like our stories, and for me I was like, that's so cool that you can, like, there's a stagnant where you're not progressing forward, but then there's a stagnant that comes with like pain or joy too. You know what I mean? So I feel like if you're stagnant, it's not necessarily, I don't know, I guess if you're stagnant, it's not great, but you want to be progressing forward. And I don't know, I was just listening to last week's show and I was like, yeah.
Good shit.
It was good shit. I don't know where I was
Good
going.
for
I
us.
had like an ADD moment there, but
no, and I think part of being stagnant is like you aren't moving, and people have to realize I believe they're stagnant in like a general sense, but at the same time, if you're not progressing, you're regressing. You're always moving somewhere. So whether you're deciding to move forward or move back, I feel like that's entirely up to you. So inside of finding a rhythm, let's talk about actually just upping your game inside of finding a rhythm. Val?
Just like examples of what we do in the salon or what?
Yeah. Give me an example or what it means to you to like have to really up the game.
I mean, you're constantly going through that. I think you do that as like a stylist, like, oh, I'm getting really good at color and I figured out this technique, and then you learn something else, and then it takes a while to get that technique down. With anything that we're doing in the salon, we used to have like take-home care sheets for the clients, and then now we've upped the game. Like we were sending that home with the clients, and now Danielle's made videos and all the clients go home with that. We've done stuff like on the iPads. We do like sharing our fucked up, fired up, like with color techniques and what we're learning with NVR, and sharing so that we're all like learning from each other. So we're just constantly like trying to better ourselves and share information so we can keep getting better as a salon. and deliver better quality to the clients.
I always look at something as a business owner and I'm like, it's good, but could it be better?
Right.
And when you kind of like change the lens a little bit, and not to be like you're picking things apart, but that's the only way to learn and grow. Like, you be like, it's really good, but could it be better? And it's almost like, for me, I have to like dive in and research and figure out what are other people doing, and then how can we even go 10 steps above that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's, just dialing it back in and just always asking, can it be better? And if you ask that simple question, then I feel like then you're in that place of where it can always be better. And
Definitely.
there's always a next level to every level of success. So.
Well, and then I know a few podcasts ago we were talking about my client who was upset about getting charged for 3 pieces of hair that she asked for, and then being like, well, no one told me. And I was like, no, I literally have the text where I told you. Mm-hmm. Even things like that, the conversation wasn't like, oh, well, fuck her, she's an asshole. I mean, it turned into, well, this might have been like a her thing. But even inside that, we were like, okay, well, what could we have done better? Mm-hmm. What did we not do at the time? What could we have done better? What should we have asked or said or written? Or how could we have made that experience different in a better way? Mm-hmm. And that's part about being the game.
Well, growth with growth comes a ton of accountability. And
yes.
I feel like if you can take accountability in every situation and see why, it's almost like you look at a situation from a logical standpoint. Like, even if you feel like you're maybe even in the wrong, like if you take accountability for like, okay, this is why this occurred, it makes you be able to be like, well, here's what we need to do different, and it just literally looking at it through another set of eyes or a different lens without being so emotionally wrapped up in a situation.
Well, and I think that's something we saw a lot inside of Warrior Week for Women as well. Mm-hmm. The very first one is that I realized so many women come in and they're like, oh, but my husband does, but my kids do, but my employees do. And I'm like, ooh, that's a lot of finger pointing you're doing. But interesting, you've yet to be like, there's one common denominator inside of all those relationships. Homie, it's you. Mm-hmm. So you might want to look inward a little bit.
Well, it's so interesting too, like that we should touch base. Like, we did the Warrior Women event last week. It went amazing. We had over 300 women there, and it's funny because people hear Warrior Women, and I got this response from a lot of the women. They're like, I came there like take back my life and be a warrior woman, and like and it's so funny. They get there, and like one specific person that I spoke with was like, I came here, like we deal with some like heavy shit, and she like came in and she's like, I came here thinking I was going to finally have the strength after 15 years to leave my husband. We're not connected, this and this and this. And then at the end of the day, she was like, I'm actually going home thinking I definitely want to make this work, and I played a big role in this. And I was like, good for you. And she was a little bit older, and she just was like, holy shit, And I'm like, that's so cool, because I think people even hear BMS and this, and they think that we're just like, rawr, you know what I mean? And I'm like, that's not.
Fuck everyone.
Yeah,
like
no.
Yes.
No, it's we put like the most accountability on ourselves and our artists, because that's how you can grow and progress forward, and yeah.
And honestly, that's how you create your dream life, is by you taking accountability. Because once you realize you're the problem, you also realize you're the fucking solution.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and inside of that, I know Wake Up Warrior itself has gotten a bad rap, which I feel that I'm sure BMS and Mastermind will have a little bit. And then Warrior for Women, that they're like, oh, pro-divorce. Like, no, we are pro you creating whatever life it is that you want. Right. And a lot of times I feel like people come into this and they just find power to be like, as it turns out, this doesn't work for me. And I've been on that end. Garrett was never like, yeah, Ani, leave your fiance. It's a great idea. He literally gave me zero advice. Right. He actually did not tell me what to do either way, yes or no. He just asked questions and was like, hey, well, can you do this? I'm like, fuck, no, I'm not doing that. He's like, do you want this? I'm like, nope. And just by him literally asking questions, which was the stack, of course, I just found my place to be like, yeah, no, that's not going to work for me anymore. Right. But we're not pro-divorce. We're just pro, I don't know, what do you want? Yeah. You figuring it out.
I love too, in a couple podcasts ago where Val was touching base on like, we're in charge of, we think we have to choreograph our story. And I love that word. I was like, yeah, like women tend to want to choreograph our story to the point where it's like not even serving us anymore. And then we're just like stuck in like, well, it's their fault because this was the choreographed story and this was the plan, so it's their fault. Mm-hmm. And if you kind of flip it and take a good look at yourself, you're like, oh, well, I wasn't really, I guess this story doesn't hold up,
Yeah, and I had talked to a few women inside of Warrior Week, and even some that are our students. And I remember one woman, and God, I cannot remember who she is or if she's one of our girls, but I was sitting there as she's talking to her pod. And they were talking about, I think, the biggest like pain point or like that had to be it. And she's like, oh, I'm just waiting for my husband to leave me. And they were like, why? And she's like, I don't want to be with him at all, but I just don't like want to be the person to cause the pain. I want to be like in the right on this. So I just like waiting for him to leave me. I'm like,
crap. But then she is in the pain. Yes. She is in the pain.
Yeah. So then I'm like, well, shit. And I just sat there and I listened because it wasn't like coaching moments at the time. It was them sharing. But I remember walking away thinking, well, but there is no right or wrong in this. It just is. If you don't want to be with him, that's okay too. There's no right or wrong. But if you're waiting for someone else to make a move on something that's so instrumental and like important inside of your life, that doesn't fucking work either.
Yeah.
And so going back into obviously like finding your rhythm and upping your game, let's have a conversation on people who say they're too busy to up their game.
Oh, I like that one.
Oh, so story time, guys. I had a conversation.
You having trouble, girl?
I'm like, what is going on? I got so many cords.
Yeah, I'm like, what is happening
I'm not
here?
gonna lie, I feel like I got kind of shocked a little bit, so I was trying to move.
Oh God. So yeah, story time. So I actually had a conversation with a student. No, you good. Don't worry. And we were talking, and she's like, I have figured out the like the part in my, like the low part in my education, the part that needs work. And I'm like, what's going on? She's like, I am not good at hair color. I'm like, okay. Well, as a hairstylist and as doing NPR, that's what we call really important, because that's literally like 99% of the appointment at this point. And I was like, okay, well, what are you doing to practice to get better at hair color? Have you watched the training videos inside the network? She's like, oh, I love watching the training videos. It's my favorite part. I'm like, great. Are you practicing? She's like, no. I'm like, cool. Are you doing anything else? Like anything to get better? She's like, I do like my hair color. I'm like, okay, no. What are you doing to get better at coloring extensions and your client? She's like, oh, I don't have time for that. I'm too busy. I'm like, what? She's like, I have 3 kids in high school and I have a preschooler and I'm just like too busy. So I have to like put myself on the back burner.
Why would she tell you that and then tell you she's too busy?
Dude, I'm not. So she's no longer in our program, in case you can't tell. That's where the story's heading. Nope. I say no on this. I have no sympathy towards it. But I was like, no. Like, she's like, well, because it turned into, she's like, well, I have to choose my kids or my career. I'm like, no. This is not you versus NBR, you versus BMS, you versus Mastermind. This is you versus you at this point. Mm-hmm. We're not asking you to choose your children. I'm like, Val has kids. Danielle has kids. A lot of our students have multiple kids and they're single moms because she's married. And so I'm like, they have no help. She's like, well, I choose my children. I'm not going to put them in daycare. I'm like, nothing wrong with daycare. I don't know why you think there's something wrong. But the entire conversation was her telling me that even though her job and chosen career is to be a hairstylist and an artist, she's shitty at color, but she will not work at being better at color because she's too busy to do that.
What's her name?
Her name is Tracy.
Tracy, let me tell you a little story. So I'm into my brand 7 years, and probably about the 3 and 4 year mark, not like the 6 month mark or the 8 month mark or the year mark, about the 3 or 4 year mark, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I can't do this. I mean, I'm working as much as I can. I'm educating. I don't have a team. I'm literally like, I know what I can become. I know what I want to be. And I'm like, I'm being so selfish. I have to stop. This is like, I feel like I have to choose my children, like just beating the shit out of myself. Just that guilt. Like guilt is the enemy. And I'm just sitting there like, just no. And finally, when I literally was like on the floor in my room, just like sobbing one night. And this voice came to me and said, it would be selfish to stop. And it was so strong that in that moment I was like, holy fucking shit, I'm using my kids as an excuse. And the minute I realized that and saw that, I was like, fuck it. And I cut back my hours, I cut back my days, I doubled my prices. I would like work, I was smarter with my fucking time.
Yep.
So when people tell me they don't have enough time, it's because you're not using your time wisely or correctly. And by using your children as an excuse is fucking bullshit. So way to play small. It's not too late in this game. I know it's not, but it's scary as shit to put yourself in that situation where you actually know that you're worth more than that. And ladies, stop using your children as an excuse. I can tell you that right now, I have so much time with my children. I create my time. I create my space. And my business is skyrocketing. And had I not chose that in the moment, this whole program and the not millions, it's going to be millions, but the hundreds of girls and women that it's affected would not exist. It wouldn't. So I knew by just using the excuse of my children, I knew I saw how many people that could affect. And in that moment, I knew it would be selfish to play small.
And I specifically told her, I said, Trace, look, this conversation was not to keep you in our program. Like, that's not why I'm here talking to you. I'm here just to see where you're at and see what's going on. I said, but by the time she literally for it had to be 7-8 minutes, was like, I'm just too busy. Like, that was literally the only thing she said. I was like, look, here's where we're at. It's bullshit. And it's a fucking excuse that you are using to play small and not play to the biggest version of yourself because you're scared. Because it's hard and it's a lot of fucking work. I will never deny it to anybody and be like, it's so easy. Just like slap some color on. No, shit's hard. It takes a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of practice. But that, she kept saying it over and over and over. And it was just infuriating to me. So, Val.
Yep.
You have children.
I do.
Wow, crazy. Do you ever feel like your children have been detrimental to your life and your goals?
No. And I get that. Like, and I think people, it's easier to be right. Like that person you were not eavesdropping on, but you were listening to at Warrior, and she was like, I'm just waiting for my man to leave me. Because then she gets to be right, and then that serves her. So she thinks. And same thing with this girl. That's a socially acceptable excuse. No one's going to frown upon that. No one's going to be like, shame on you for choosing your kids. But that's actually not the fact of what you are choosing. That's actually a lie. So you can't, everyone has the same 24 hours in a day. It's how effective you are with your time. So you can, like, you go through phases. Like, everyone has, like, their journeys of, I have gone through, like, my total hustle and grind where I feel like I'm working 20 hours a day, like I'm missing a ton of stuff. But I knew there was an end game, like, not the end game plan, but I knew that was for a period of time to get me over this hump, to get me to this next phase. And then I reeled it in a little. And then that got me through to get to the next phase and all of that. But I always have, like, what I'm doing is building a better life for our family. And that each time, each phase that I, like, cross through my new threshold, my quality time is that much more quality, you know? So when I'm at work, I'm giving it my all, and it is hard work. It is hard learning in BR and marketing and putting yourself out there and growing and having bad feedback, good feedback. It's growing pains. It's constant.
And it's scary.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
And then anytime something goes wrong, the easiest thing to do is to say, oh, it's not worth it. I just want to be with my kids. Because, yes, of course, every mom wants to be with their kids. Totally. I get that. But that's not helping you grow. That's the easy way out, honestly, is to say, no, I can't do this. I'm just going to be with my kids. I do. I want to be with my kids, but I want it to be effective, and I still want to be able to serve these other purposes in my life. That's not my only purpose.
Don't you think, too, like, if you choose to grow and become the best version of yourself, I think that actually serves your family and your children more so.
Totally.
Anyways, like, people know, like, when I'm, like, happy and feeling like I'm living my life on purpose and, like, up to all this great shit, and, like, my kids see it. They see it. They see that, and they're like, oh, Mom, you know, and the energy in the home is totally different. And so, like,
and even when you're working hard too, like, I let my kids know this is what happens. Like, you want to go to Hawaii for Christmas and we have vacations, this is what it looks like. You have to work hard. No one's going to do it for you. So this is what our family looks like, working hard. Daddy's doing this in the morning, Mommy's doing this in the evening, and, like, it's a team effort. And, like, you have to, like, kind of put it in perspective for them and have those, like, open conversations. But even when you're going through the times where you feel like you don't have, when you're going through those growing pains and you're not having as much time as you want, you know, with your family and stuff, if you're having those discussions and saying it's for this, I feel like it opens a thing for the kids that they see, okay, this is what hard work is.
Well, and you know what's so funny, real quick? I remember feeling, like, so guilty because I have a 7-year-old and 11-year-old, and, like, I would always, like, feel so guilty, like, oh, I gotta, like, hurry and get from even the salon or from work. I gotta pick him up. I gotta do it all. I gotta work. I gotta pick him up. I gotta do this. And then it was so funny. I think it was only maybe like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I remember, like, I was, like, picking up Ruby on time and everything. And it was their last school before this one. And Ruby'd be like, oh, Mom, can I stay and play with my friends? Because they have, like, daycare. And then, like, every day I'm feeling like I'm Superwoman. And, like, both of my kids are like, oh, Mom, is it okay if you drop me off at my friend's house? And I'm like, they don't even want to hang out with me. And
working so hard for this.
Right? And so I have all this mommy guilt, and I'm, like, thinking, like, yeah, I'm only working, like, 9 to 3, and then I can pick up my kids, and we can do dinner, and we're homework, and a checklist, and da-da-da-da, and I'm writing my story, you know? And then I'm, like, realizing, like, my kids, like, they didn't even want to hang out with me. And I was like, well, I can't use that excuse anymore. Right? And so it was funny because I didn't really want to work at the salon super late. Like, I knew my happy place of how many hours I wanted to work behind the chair.
Yeah.
But I was like, and even Garrett was like, Danielle, why don't you go work on your marketing, or why don't you go work on this and this? And, like, if they want to be with friends, go work on other follow-up stuff that you need to get done.
Yep.
And then you're done. By the time you pick them up, like, you're done. And I was like, oh, because my problem was that I'd pick up my kids and I'd try to be mom and then I'd be on my phone and I'd try to be mom and then I'd be on my computer and then I'd try to be mom. And that's not like the kids. Then the kids just look at me like, my mom's always working. Mommy, can you please put your phone down? Because they see that because I'm trying to juggle. So instead.
You're half mom, half business woman.
Yeah. And I'm like, I can't wear 2 hats at once. And so I was like, okay, yeah, let's set up some after school programs. Hey, yeah, if you want to stay in daycare and play with your friends, great. They even help them with their homework. I'm like, done. So it was just like, I realized I was like, I don't need to, like, this story that I had created about, like, I have to, this guilt that was driving me to, like, go pick them up early. They didn't care, you know? So I just, like, I feel like that's, like, something that moms are abiding by a story out of guilt. And really, ultimately, especially if your kids are older, like, they don't need you every hour of the day. Like, they'd be cool to have a Saturday afternoon with you, and then they're like, see you later.
They do not want to give you Saturday afternoon. They want to be at the
mall.
No, they don't want you Saturday afternoon. They'll take you Wednesday evening.
You can get a movie night on Wednesday, okay? And maybe a Sunday afternoon brunch, okay?
They will pencil you into their Instagram.
I will force my kids to hang out with me 24/7.
I know. It's true. I still snuggle my 11-year-old. It's cool.
I love it.
But if it's not working for you, I would suggest, like, try shifting how you're spending your time. I know women pride themselves as, like, being multitaskers and, like, oh, we can do everything. But, like, if it's not working for you, instead of throwing in the towel and saying, like, this is too much, I can't do it, like, try shifting it. Try giving yourself an hour before they wake up and focusing that on your marketing. And then when you're at work, to not be worrying and calling the school constantly and checking in and texting your husband, making sure that they're doing stuff. Just know they're at school right now and I'm at work and I'm going to give my all at work. And then now you're going home and you're going to give, like, another, like, 2 hours. We're doing dinner and family game or tucking them into bed, reading books, whatever it is, and give your kids all of you. And then if you tuck them in, and then you can spend another 30 to 40 minutes, but just try and, like, compartmentalize and spend your time differently, and I bet you would be way more effective and get more done and not feel so overwhelmed and feel like in the times you're doing those things that you're doing a better job, you know, because it is getting your full undivided attention, and then you won't have that guilt.
Well, don't you think, too, there's so much freedom and submission and realizing, like, you can't do it all. I think, like, we pride ourselves in, like, being like, I'm strong, I can do it all. And then it's like you submit and you're just like, oh.
Yeah.
Ooh. It was so interesting at Warrior Women. Like, Garrett's like, hey, I want you to share the final message. And I hate when he does that, but I love it. But I was like, I try to, like, just plug in and be like, what do I need to share? And I don't know if you were there at the end, but, like, literally the only thing I said is I stood up in front of all the women and I'm like, submit, ladies. I'm like, you don't need to, like, always do everything all the time. And in our last podcast, you said another thing and you were like, you said, how much of an ego do you have to, like, think that you're the only one that can be the best at every single thing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like ego and guilt that sets in. And so, like, when I got up, I was like, surrender. I was like, submit. Because in my life, I'm, like, such a control freak. Like, I really am. And then I realized, like, it doesn't serve me. And that caused me to have all this stress and anxiety because I thought I was being strong by not submitting. And then submitting, I realized I'm happier. And so it's like you have to always dial it in and be like, okay, it's doing all this, does it serve me? Okay, no. Okay, what can I what would serve me in that kind of situation?
Well, even I just had a moment like that, given I don't have kids, but I do want to address one more thing with that in a minute. I had a meeting with our CFO for 4 hours a couple weeks ago. And Danielle's like, oh, dear God. But yeah, it was 4 hours to talk about where BMS is going. We're getting our training facility, and then the BMS lounge is going to be coming, like, right across from DKW. There's so much good stuff happening, and it's super exciting. But with that, the reason we're doing it is because BMS is growing at a rate we never expected. So we're going to be having next year more events, and we were discussing, and we're like, okay, that's like 10,000 events a year, it feels like. So I'm like, how am I supposed to... Clearly, that's an overdramatic number, but it's fine. You guys get it. Danielle's like, 10,000? There's not even 10,000 days. What are you talking about? But even inside of that, I was like, oh, my God. Like, I can't actually do all of these events that we're going to have to fulfill everyone that's coming into Mastermind. And so we kept talking, and Jeff was like, okay. He's like, Ani, what is the one thing keeping BMS back from hitting, like, these goals? And I sat there. It was him, myself, and my assistant Morgan. And I look at him. I'm like, shit, it's me. And Mo looked at me and I was like, it's me. It's 100. I am actually the fucking problem right now. The fact that, not that I can't let go. No, yeah, okay, I can't let go, and I won't let go of any control inside of BMS because it's literally like pieces of my soul are inside of this company at this point. Anyone listening, make all the Harry Potter jokes you want right now. It's cool. But it's true. Like, parts of my soul, I feel like, are in this company. I've fucking bled left and right for it to, like, to build it up at this point. And then I'm like, you want me to do what and let what go? And I was like, shit. Because now we're talking about a certified trainer program, and that's where next year is going to be leading into. And I sat there like, oh, sweet baby Jesus, you're going to have to let go. You're going to have to train people like Garrett trained you to be a new you.
But when it's so crazy, when you get to that place, you look at the people and you're like, you get so proud of them. Like I experienced this in my own salon, like with like Val and Stacy and everybody on the team. Now I like look at their work and stuff and I'm like, I'm like, it's like this element of like, I'm cool and like we got this going and off the ground, but ultimately this is where we wanted it to go.
Yeah.
And you're in this like cool place of like, yeah. And you realize like you said, like a lot of times you realize like I was holding it back. You know what I mean? And so then when you let go, you're like, you just feel lighter.
Well, I think right now I'm still in the I might vomit stages. I've accepted it that it's like a general theory concept.
No,
but then
those trainers will get up there and you'll see them speak and you'll see them training and you'll have this moment and you're like,
I got you.
I was there. We did it. You know,
I think, and for sure, I know I will. I think it's the beginning part of it. And then knowing that they will be taking over these events. I won't be there. I will jump in like Garrett used to do to me. Now he doesn't even come anymore, but I can like go jump in, make sure everything's good. But then like, that's my job now is to train the trainers. And so that just, I sat there and Morgan looked at me. She's like, Ani, that was really big of you. I'm like, fuck you. Fuck off, Morgan. Shut up. But then I look at her and I'm like, everything she's learned. I'm so proud of her. And like she is, because I like pour into that woman and she steps up every step of the way. I'm like, well, if she can do it, if I did it, Val did it, Morgan did it, Jill did it, like, okay, there are others that can do it too.
Totally. And I feel that way the same way. I know I didn't create NBR or BMS, but I've been there from like the beginning and I've seen how the salon's grown. And like you said, how you feel like proud. I feel that same way. Like, gosh, I remember like I love when the old school clients come in and they're like, oh, remember this? And I'm like, oh, look how far we've come. Like all of us together. Like, and same thing with BMS. Like I've seen like it's something I never even dreamt that it could be. And I know there's so much more coming. And so I've just learned to submit early on when Garrett's like, this new person's coming on. This is what you have to release for as far as control. And Danielle saying you have to be patient with this person and you got it. And I'm like, okay. So I just am like learning to submit like earlier on and not fight it because it's always benefited better having more people on the team training them and like letting other people have that and find that confidence within themselves too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited for it. I'm just a little like, I'm still at that nervous stage.
It's so crazy though. Like when I'm at that place and I want to like throw up a little bit.
I'm there.
Yeah. It's so crazy because when it clicks and you finally are like, here's the keys to my baby, it's not like it will go where it needs to go.
Yes.
And in my experience, the faster we submit, and I know people might be triggered by the word submit, right?
We're not saying become a sex slave for the love
right.
of God.
And it does, and it almost sounds.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Whips and chains over there, calm down.
It almost sounds like you're weak. And I have found a lot of strength in submission. So the quicker like I learn to kind of like let go, and it's not like I'm out of the mix, but just kind of like let go, I see us grow as a company and grow together. And ultimately that's what I want. And then it makes me rise up. It makes me, because I see other people around me rising and I'm like, well,
I'm not getting left
shit.
behind.
Yeah, and I'm like, she's fucking awesome, and I want to be fucking awesome. And so it allows me to be like, well, Danielle, you're the creator. You started this. Get in there. So I'm like reading, and I'm challenging myself to do new things. I'm like writing a book. I'm doing all this shit that I didn't know or ever even want to do. But as you guys all grow and our whole teams grow around us, I'm like, everything literally starts to elevate. So submission is strength in the sense that it will also make you rise as well.
And hey, you know what? I've been making jokes for a while that I wanted an army of me. So now's my chance. Here we go. But what I think is really cool is, everyone's like, please God, no more Anis. But what I think is really cool is what used to be considered like top tier of BMS, like level 3, like this is the best part of our education, is actually now like level 1 of Mastermind. Like, yeah, what used to be like the best of the best is now like, yeah, that's just like base entry, which made us have to up our game. Okay, if level 3 inside of BMS Intensives is now level 1 of Mastermind, oh shit, that means that we now, level 2 has to be even better, level 3, and I find it shifting down. What is level 3 becomes 2, then 1, and then we have to create a new 2 and 3. Like, we're constantly having to up the game, and even Michaela and I for the boot camps, the ideas we have for next year, we're so excited for all these business boot camps. And when I told her about the CT program, she's like, you're not leaving, are you? I'm like, no, I'm not leaving.
Down.
I'm like, hold on, don't you dare try and kick me out already. I'll fucking boot you. I'm kidding, I love you. But even inside of that, like, I'm like, I think it's going to be really great, but I have had to learn to submit. Even giving Morgan tasks when I hired her on, I literally hired her on to take shit off my plate, and I was like, just do like this little thing. And she would kind of look at me like, okay.
Can you take all the garbage, Morgan? Thank you.
But again, when you're submitting, like, and if Morgan's not doing a good job, that falls on you. You didn't
Yeah,
train
I was
her.
the asshole.
So then you still have like that power in you if that's what you need, like, because it comes back to you always.
Yeah.
And I love though now seeing her because she's stepping into Bednarski's role, which is kind of like the event coordinator of everything. And now she's stepping into that role. And this morning she sent me a spreadsheet that, guys, it brought a tear to my eye. It was the most beautiful spreadsheet I've ever seen. I was like, oh, I knew I loved you. So I just think it's great. So, okay, Danielle. So final words on getting in a rhythm, upping your game, and fuck your story of too busy.
I am going to take it back to what I said at BMS Con. There is strength and submission. In order to let yourself rise to the next level, you've got to be willing to dial it back in. And I know that can be scary, but after you see the results, then you realize, like, holy shit, I was stuck in my own story. And then you find a whole new rhythm of how to become the best version of yourself.
And Val.
I like it.
Oh, no, Dana.
I was going to say, and... honestly, like, you don't understand as women how many people we affect by just simply becoming the better versions of yourself. So it's not even just about you. Like, like your energy and your growth, and like people will come into our salon all the time and they're like, "Oh my God, I'm so proud of you guys." And they come back because I think we do awesome hair, but they love to see the story and the growth, and everybody kind of loves that. Like, they love seeing that story. You know what I mean? I think of like people like that start from here and go to here, and like people just have this so much like, good for you. You know, like you did it, and everybody has this capability to do so. It's just like you just have to go for it.
Val, what do you have to say, final words, to the women and the moms, actually, who are sitting there using their children as an excuse, which is sad. Imagine how that makes your children feel.
Yeah, don't use them as an excuse. Use yourself as an example to show them that you can do it. Be more effective with your time. If you aren't getting the results that you want, don't throw in the towel. Switch, like, your mind shift around and switch what you're doing with your time and be more effective and present in each task. Kind of compartmentalize, like I was saying earlier, and I think you'll find that you can do everything. We all have 24 hours in a day. There's not one person who has extra hours, and if you're looking at someone, they're like, well, they can do it because they have a nanny, or they have this, they have that. No, we all have the same amount of time, so just, if you need to delegate. If you need to compartmentalize, do that, but don't throw in the towel. Be an example for your kids. Don't use them as an excuse.
Beautifully said. So thank you for listening in on episode number 38 of the Big Money Stylist podcast. You can actually watch Val stare into the corner at bigmoneystylistnow.com, and we will see you guys next week.